Record. Well, love that lovely recording in progress.
Yeah,
Well, pleasure meeting with you, man. We had a chance to speak a little bit earlier today, and yeah, just super excited to learn more about you, learn more about your company, your initiatives, and just kind of dig into your past a bit. The format of the show is basically we're digging into tools and techniques and things that you've used in the past that work well for you and have worked well for you. Um, and it doesn't have to pertain to just your business. It could be your personal life as well. Anything that you find super useful is fair game. So yeah, I guess I'll just kind of kick things off. I'm Ben with Popvia. I had started things in the development side of things probably about 10 years ago. Got into SaaS and that sort of stuff the last few years, and just been super excited about that. Um, but yeah, let's kick things off and pass it over to our guest. Would love to learn more about you and just showcase you to the audience and your project to the audience.
sweet. Yeah. Appreciate that, Ben. Excited to be here. I'm Ishaan. I'm the founder of Omnara, and we were part of the summer 25 YC batch. We're building a voice first mobile coding environment that lets developers start and manage their coding sessions from anywhere, so including from their phone. So, not just sitting at their desk. I came from in AI infrastructure background. So before this, I was working at Microsoft. I was working on Azure Kubernetes service and open source projects. And a lot of this came from my own frustration with how rigid building software feels like, even with the AI tools we have. And so Omnara is all about making that more fluid and fit better into real life, and happy to dig into any part of that.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, all right. Well, let's see. So you have voice and text interface, and you guys are actually on the phone, which is really
Yeah.
cool. Can you tell me a little bit more about that? Because I haven't downloaded the app yet, and just as like a newbie who doesn't know anything about your business or your project, can you tell me just a little bit more about how everything is set up?
Yeah, so that's actually the core idea. We noticed that most AI coding tools, they still assume you're sitting at a desk with a keyboard open,
Mhm.
but a lot of thinking and debugging and planning actually happens away from the laptop. So that includes like when you're walking, when you're outside, you're lying on the couch, whatever. And that's the idea behind Amnara. So it lets you use your voice or text on your phone to interact with your coding agent that's running against your real code base. So you can kick off tasks, you can uh, see the progress for things or make changes, and then you when you do come back, you can drop into your editor when you want to do the hands-on work. Um, it's not about replacing an IDE; it's about extending the workflow beyond the desk. Yeah.
Okay, so it's kind of like a handoff process. I was thinking
Yeah.
similar to like if you have a Chrome extension, or excuse me, like you're using Chrome on your phone and
Mm.
you want to um, pass off a tab to your browser on your desktop, you can kind of do that. So simplistic example, but is that kind of what you guys do? You're passing off workflows in between the two?
Yeah, that's a good analogy. I think the difference is instead of passing a static thing like a tab, you're passing the state, and that's the state of your agent. So the agent remembers what it was doing because it was working already on your computer. It remembers the files it touched. Um, so yeah, you might start something on your phone, say you want to create a plan for how you want to do something or refactor something, and then later when you come back home, you open up your editor, you're not you're not starting over again. The context is all there. Um, yeah, so it flows. It's like a workspace that flows between your devices.
Okay,
Yeah.
I'm pretty sold then. I'm gonna have to download it.
Awesome. Yeah.
And I will also make a link in the description as well. So for the once this is syndicated as a video and also syndicated as audio, I'll make sure that there's a link for your business and everything associated with it as well.
Oh,
Um,
oh,
cool. So let me see. I'm just going to browse your site real quick. Oh, nice. Okay. So you guys are kind of working around through the agentic process and you're able to get like notifications, it looks like once Claude and your agent has like finished running through well Claude or I imagine whichever selected agent you want to use has finished running through the process. That's cool, man. Because I've always been wondering about how to just do like a notification process for folks that are coding and that sort of stuff. Because you don't want to sit at your desk the whole time and wait for
exactly.
that ping. It's like, come on, man.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah,
like I
yeah,
want to
you're
get
completely
up, maybe go cook something while this is running, and like that's awesome.
Yeah, yeah, no, I appreciate that. Yeah, that was like I think that was a big part of it. It's like you don't want to be so coding agents now are running longer and longer. So maybe it'll run for like even like 10, 15 minutes. I have tasks sometimes that go like for 20 minutes. You don't want to be staring at your terminal. Um, yes, yes. So yeah, so the idea is you might start on your laptop and then pick up on your phone.
Heck yeah. Well, cool. So that's where you're at now. How did you start out? Like you said, you had a co-founder, and you guys have been working together for several years. Tell me a little bit about that relationship and just how you guys decided to choose this problem set.
Yeah, that's a good question. So my co-founder and I have grown up together. We've known each other since childhood. Um, yeah, we met in like preschool, so
Awesome.
definitely, yeah, definitely, yeah, grateful to have known him for such a long time. Um, yeah, and I think it's so throughout, like we went to high school together. We didn't end up going to college together, but we kept staying in touch, and I was always calling him up, and I was like, when are we going to do our own thing? When are we going to leave? We were working jobs at the time, and we were both working like, 14 hours, whatever, like the whole day at our desk jobs. And it was just like I would call him and I'd be like, Kartik, like we could be working just as hard, but for ourselves.
Yeah.
Not for a company. And I learned a lot. Like, I learned a lot at Microsoft, and I'm still grateful for that time, but it was just this nagging feeling that just kept coming up. Um, and then I remember there was one phone call in particular that we had where I had grown like really frustrated, at work. Um, and look, I didn't have a bad job at all, whatsoever. It was just, um, I was working remotely, and I just wanted to do the own thing. So I said, Kartik, I need you to say yes, like right now, like on this call. Like I will make sure that all the applications go through for YC and like we'll continue. All I need you to do is just say yes on this call. And it was like the longest 10 seconds of my life. Like he didn't say anything. And then he's like, yes, like, okay, let's do this. And then yeah, that was 2 weeks before the YC deadline, which was crazy. Those 2 weeks were just yeah, it was like working nonstop to get something in for the deadline. Yeah.
Yeah, for folks that are not founders or entrepreneurs, they probably don't know, but there's like that almost adrenaline rush that you get for
Yeah.
almost a series of weeks, and then you have that like major crash after the fact.
Yeah.
So that must have been a really heavy fueled uh, approach to everything. That's awesome, man. So 2 weeks, and you guys were out of the gate. Um, you convinced your co-founder to just say yes on a call,
Yeah.
and we're ready to just go for the next thing. I think that's awesome. I love people that take bets on themselves and are just like, I mean, that's like the traditional entrepreneur just in general, right?
Yeah.
It's like, I want to do my own thing. Even if I have to work 12, 14 hours a day, I want to do my own thing because then I can, actually build the company and the culture the way that I want it.
Yeah. And I think that just going off that, like the 2 weeks, like especially those 2 weeks before you're operating on a lot of excitement and there's momentum and everything's um, hitting you all at once. I guess that stretch taught me something really important. That's just how valuable momentum matters.
Mm.
I would even go to say that momentum matters more than clarity early on because we didn't have really everything figured out at all. We just committed and we said we're going to ship, we're going to start moving. And I think once you cross that mental line from thinking about this, because I know like dozens of, and I'm sure you do too, like there's even hundreds of people that say, "Oh, I want to start my own company one day," or "Oh, I want to build something," but it's always just thinking about it or
Yeah.
thinking about how they're going to do it. And once you cross that mental barrier from thinking about it to we're doing this, um, that's when things start to happen. And you have to allow yourself, give yourself permission to do that. But once you do, it's really hard to go back, you know? Yeah.
Yeah, well said. It's super addictive.
Yeah.
To just be
Yeah.
like, and I'm not sure if you've had the opportunity yet to be, or the unique I think position to like found your own thing and then go back to work and then found your own thing. It's such a it's like going from a dysfunctional family to like a healthy family to a dysfunctional family, and you're like, wait, I recognize this pattern.
Yeah. Yeah. I, I personally haven't gone back from finding it, but I've thought about that contrast a lot. Like, I just don't know. Like, do you have experience was that something you had to go through then?
Yeah. So I had tried, a couple of startups in the past, and, just kind of went through this cycle because,
Mm,
I was like, all right, cool. Let's set aside some money, try this startup idea. Didn't work out. This is pre-AI. So, I mean, things are running
yeah.
slow. Got to put together a team, get a designer, get a few developers, that sort of stuff. So I'm like, all right, cool, let's push. And then I just didn't
Yeah.
have the focus and clarity on that one, and I
Mm,
didn't go all in like I should have. So I
mm,
was like, oh crap. All right, well, back to work. We got to pay off some debt and, kind of
yeah.
save up again, and then just try to push again. And yeah,
Yeah.
that is a unique cycle for sure. But anyone that's a purebred entrepreneur, I think, would
Mm,
agree with me. They're just like,
yeah.
once you get a taste of that freedom
Yeah.
and like what you want to do and what you want to focus in, then you find a way to eventually go all in. So
Yeah. My dad talks about this sometimes too. He says he's an entrepreneur as well. He says he uses the phrase once it gets in your blood. But it's the same idea. It's like it fundamentally changes how you see work. And I've heard of founders that even when they do go back to, because a lot of employers like to hire founders,
mhm.
or for former founders. And the reason for that is because if you go back to a job, you're not just as a former founder, you're not just executing, you're thinking about ownership. You're thinking about like why was this decision made the way that it was? You're thinking about customers. You're thinking. I think founding ruins you in a good way,
Yeah.
right? Like you lose that illusion because when I was at Microsoft, I had this illusion that oh, someone else has that figured out. Like, oh, I'm just here to work on product. Someone else has uh or I'm just here to work on engineering. Somebody else has the sales and the marketing and everything else figured out. And you start to realize after you found something that companies are just made by a bunch of these people, uh, and who are under uncertainty. It's not like you're just like everything else is figured out. And yeah, I guess what I'm trying to get at is once you've felt that level of ownership and agency, it's really hard to unfeel it.
Yeah, absolutely. It's like oh, what is the name of that? Allegory of the Cave.
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
you can leave the cave and then come back and try to explain to other people that have been, working there and toiling there for the longest time. Like, oh yeah, well, as a senior developer, you should probably be thinking about business aligned goals and that sort of thing, to make sure that this is what we should build. And a lot of people would be like, what? I'm just
Mhm.
here to build the product.
Yeah.
So totally get it, man. It's well, that's cool. So you've been on that journey. You've gone through the the disillusionment and gotten to a place where you're founding your own company. So tell me about how all that kind of came together. I mean, you told me that you guys had a quick call and then you went through and submitted the YC application. So take me from the YC application to where you're at now. How did that process kind of come about?
Yeah. So, honestly, it wasn't like it came together pretty slowly. Like it wasn't one like big moment per se. It was like a bunch of these like small frustrations stacking up. Like um I think like there was a mismatch between like what I wanted to do, and that gap pulled me into founding. And that Omnara really came out of that. It was I it started out, we actually had a different idea that we had applied to YC with at the time. I
Hmm.
was really frustrated with some of the hallucinations, and coding agents have come a long way actually in the past half a year itself. But at that time, I was dealing with a lot of hallucinations with Kubernetes specific related stuff, and I wanted to like I was talking to Kartik, and we wanted to basically build basically an MCP server to get versioned correct documentation for coding agents.
Hmm.
Um, and we called the idea ground docs. Um, I think now it's there's a startup called Context 7, which does like exactly what we were planning to do. So clearly other people picked up on it. Um, But yeah, that like Omnara, and then we evolved that idea. I remember one of our early YC conversations with our partner, he was like, we were talking about the idea with him, and one of the things that came up, he's like, okay, like, are you excited about what you're working on? That was the question he asked us. And Kartik and I looked at it was very heavy documentation. We were parsing documentation to give to LLMs, and Kartik and I said, no, honestly, we're actually not that excited about this. I mean, we weren't excited about documentation. And so that is when it was like, okay, we need to change ideas. We want to do something we're more excited about. And that's where agents and being able to manage agents wherever you are was how Omnara was born, because specifically my co-founder Kartik had started using Claude Code really early on, and he was frustrated by having to wait at his desk for like 15 minutes for it to generate something. And he wanted to just be able to use it wherever he was. Yeah.
Right on. So I totally empathize with that. Just wanting to, utilize it wherever you can. Especially as you were mentioning earlier, like sitting on a couch and just, or like laying down on the couch and just like having free time or going for a walk. You were saying that that's where a lot of debugging happens. You just really want to save that state, as you were mentioning. So I
Yeah.
think that's an awesome use case, and I think it's sweet that you guys were able to pivot from something that you
Yeah.
weren't super passionate about into something that was a real problem set for yourself
Yeah.
and for other folks. So,
I think that that's the lesson here. Just add on to that. Once we pivoted to something we were genuinely excited about, execution got way easier,
hell yeah.
And I think for entrepreneurs like listening, that would be a good takeaway, is that if you work on something you're excited about and something you enjoy working on, it doesn't feel like work. And you could probably also attest to that, Ben.
Yeah, absolutely. Working on something, 12, 14 hours a day isn't too bad when you're like locked in and you're like, all right, cool. Like I'm doing something that I think is meaningful and like can actually change things.
Yeah.
Uh, Well, right on, man. So, let's see. So we've had a chance to talk about how your company started and where you're at. Where do you see yourself? I know this is a very cheesy question, but where do you see yourself in 5 years in terms of just yourself as a founder and as a company?
Oh man, that's a good question. I feel like I'm so caught up in the day to day that I don't spend enough time thinking about this.
Well,
I
okay.
yeah,
Uh,
I think I care a lot. Sorry, were you gonna say something?
no, all you.
Um, I think I care something I honestly in 5 years I care much I care about becoming a better operator and leader. I don't think I fully appreciated how hard that was until I I got into it. Learning to make decisions under uncertainty, that's a big thing for every founder. Learning how to hire well, how to communicate, um, not burning yourself out, is another big one. From a company perspective, I'd love for Omnara to be genuinely one of those tools that developers rely on, not because it's like some sort of I don't know, like a flashy thing, but because it actually fits into how people's like actual lives and how they work. If in 5 years from now people just say, yeah, this feels obvious, of course this exists, that's a big win for us, you know. Um, I'm less attached to some sort of like specific like valuation or like, oh, we raised X amount or something like that. I'm more attached to building something that's real, that's really useful for people, and growing into the kind of founder that can actually sustain that. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. So it sounds like you're super product focused and just focused on building the best thing that you can and making it as sticky as possible in the sense that you're trying to integrate it into like the average dev workflow. So I think
Yeah.
that's awesome. I think that's a great intersection to be at. And I think it's going to pay off, man. I'm bullish on this one.
Yeah. Fingers crossed. Thanks.
Yeah, dude. Well, I know it's hard, as you were mentioning, going from like day to day and just kind of being heads down and like focused on all the specific details. It is a challenge to, pick your head up and be like, okay, well, where am I steering the ship? What am I focused on? Um,
Yeah.
and I have a feeling that you're very talented at being able to do both, and you're probably not giving yourself that level of credit necessary to think about big picture vision and that sort of stuff. Because I mean, you were still able to get into YC, you were still able to pitch investors and get backing and that sort of stuff. So
Appreciate that.
yeah, no problem, man. Um, okay, so let's talk about maybe shorter term goals. Like, where do you want to see yourself in like 6 months? Where do you see the product evolving? And I apologize if this is something you can't talk about. Feel free to tell me if that's something that's you guys are trying to keep under wraps. Totally get that too.
No, no, I think I'm totally an open book here. In the next 6 months, um, a really big thing we're pushing on the product side. Well, for one thing, is we want Omnara to be um, just super reliable for this small but passionate group of developers. And we've already seen that. Um, but we want to continue to like make it a stable part of people's workflow, something that people are continuing to come back to. And I think that that means tightening. Like, there's definitely some bugs that we've fixed a lot of the any of the major bugs that we had, but making sure it stays in context across devices, making sure that starting a task is super straightforward. And actually, one of the things we're going to be doing in the next 6 months is we have a managed service, so basically a hosted offering of Omnara, so that you can basically your local workspace can get synced up to the cloud and back. So
Hell
at
yeah.
that point, yeah, at that point you can just close your laptop and then it'll still be on your phone. And then when you open your laptop again, any of the changes that were applied on your phone get synced back to your local environment.
Okay. So
Yeah.
that's got to be a challenging technical problem. I
Yeah.
was trying to deal with that on just like progressive web applications and kind of syncing data on just like a social network. I can't imagine how difficult it would be to sync state of a agent and of that sort of stuff. Can you maybe dig into the details a little bit on that? Like, um,
Yeah.
what sort of roadblocks have you guys run into from like a technical perspective? And well, I'll just leave it there and let you kind of take it.
Yeah. Yeah. So you are right. It is a very hard problem. The past like 3 or 4 days, the whole team has been like we've been whiteboarding different ways of solving the syncing problem. It genuinely is like it's like an open problem.
Mhm.
Um, I guess a very like abstract, simple analogy is like a Google Doc. You have a Google Doc, you edit it, say on your computer, you're able to open it on your phone, and it's still up to date. Obviously, Google Doc is a little different because there's like more collaboration and stuff, but yeah, it is a hard problem because you're trying to sync um the state of the agent and the file system changes um to the cloud and back.
Mhm.
So the way we're solving it is using Git. So we have checkpoints and we're using and one of the members on the team would have a better answer for you, but we're using like Git bundles. Uh, so some like lower level Git primitives to basically like save state and then resume state across the cloud and then the local environment.
Okay.
Uh, yeah, there is still challenges like with reconciliation there. But we're thinking that at least for V1, it's totally fine to have some slight hiccups. Um, but to just ship uh like V1 synchronization.
Hell
Um,
yeah. Yeah,
yeah,
as you were mentioning earlier, just momentum is huge.
yeah,
So being able to put out and show progress for that new feature set is going to be huge. Um, well, cool. Okay, so you guys have a long-term vision, especially just for yourself. You're just saying you want to be a more well-rounded operator, make sure that you're focused on not burning out. In the next 6 months, you guys are really focused on just a push in general to improve the product. And right now, you're focused on syncing and just kind of idiosyncratic technical details at the moment. Um, well, let me ask you this. Do you have any questions for me or just
yeah.
general?
Yeah, I would love to hear more about. So I feel I never really got into this with you, but what do you do now? Are you a founder now, or a developer, or what are you up to, Ben?
Yeah, so I've been doing a little bit of everything. The past 10 years, I've been doing primarily dev, combination of doing some freelance work, contract work, and full-time work. So just kind of this odd machination of experience. But yeah, the past 5 years, I would say I've been really focused on startups and just trying to get my feet wet with assembling teams, putting together um, just different MVPs and seeing what sticks.
Mhm.
We were talking a little bit earlier, I think, about just that cycle of like, trying a startup, not seeing it succeed, and then going back to work and then going back to the startup. So I've
Mhm.
been doing that for probably the past, yeah, 5 or so years. And
Mhm.
this time I'm all in, man. Like
Yeah.
that, from just like a marketing,
Yeah.
distribution perspective, all that stuff. I'm putting all my eggs in this basket. And in the past, I hadn't done that. It was
Mhm.
very much just dipping my toes in the water. So, um,
So I'm just curious about this because you've done startups, you've gone back to work, you've done startups again. Wh- What is something you understand now about building that you wish you knew the earlier times, or say the first time?
oh, great question. Um, be very ruthless with your team. And I know that that's a um, not a popular opinion, or I would imagine kind of a contentious opinion in general is just but yeah, I mean your org is new and it's the culture is going to be just a hyper echo chamber. So
Mhm.
if it's just you and like a handful of folks, then I find that once you determine that someone's not a great fit just for the culture in general or what you're trying to build, then just remove them from the organization as quickly as possible. In the past, I didn't do that. I was just trying to become friends with everyone, and I was trying to make everything a super democratic process. What do you think of this? What do you think of that? And it really came across as just poor leadership, I think, on my part.
Mhm.
In hindsight, just having empathy for that situation, I think it's just like, yeah, should have gone all in, should have been more rigid on my expectations, and should have been more focused on just the direction that we're headed, and just making sure that we have a true north. Um,
Yeah. No, I think that's a really strong point. Um, what is that? So I completely agree with you. I feel like people don't, I guess, hear that or realize that enough. When you say, so how does that look like in practice? Like, is it about like you setting expectations up front, like this is what things are going to be like, or yeah, I'll let you answer that.
yeah, sure. So like, are you asking more so like when you bring someone on board, like
Yeah.
yeah, I think being rigid with expectations up front is
Mhm.
definitely ideal. Like this, the company culture that we're building, we're highly valuable, or excuse me, we highly value transparency. We highly value just collaboration, those sorts of like average things that you would expect in most businesses. And then, if you got like any weird, like unique things, like for example, in our company, we want to most of us play D&D except for like one of the developers.
Oh, nice.
So when we hit 20K MMR or excuse me, ARR, not MRR,
Mhm.
ARR, then we're going to play a D&D campaign and just kind of iterate through that. So, we
Nice.
try to be like transparent about like, the sort of fun that folks could have as well.
Mhm.
But to circle back, I think to what the core of you are really asking is and correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the core of what you're really asking is how do you approach something early on when you can determine that someone's probably not the best fit? Um, would that be kind of in line with what you're asking, or am I putting words in your mouth here?
Yeah, I meant like you mentioned about being ruthless, and I think you answered the question there. Like you're setting expectations, or maybe you remind people of uh goals. So I really like the D&D example. Like that's a good example of like culture.
Right on.
Um, yeah.
Um,
Um,
well, to your point, I have a just a recent example actually.
mhm.
One of our founding engineers, Himanshu, shout out to Himanshu if he's listening, is an Osso operator. He's just recently come on with us since November.
Mhm.
And when he came on, it was him and another developer. And, I don't want to name names, but this other developer said that he
Mhm.
had 6 years experience. He was like, yeah, all in, let's go, all pro company. doing up his profiles and everything to, be like a team player and that sort of stuff. I'm like, all right, this guy sees the vision. He's on board. He's fitting into the culture. Like, let's do this. Um, he had trouble just setting up the development environment and
Mm,
wasn't asking the necessary questions.
right.
Um, and you could tell by some of the questions he was asking, he just didn't have that 6 years of experience, or it was perhaps a very scattered experience.
Yeah.
So within 2 days, I told my CTO, I'm like, look, this guy is great. He's got energy, but he's a mercenary. He's not a missionary, and that's, I think, one of the more important things about like an early business is making sure that you have someone that not only fits into the culture from a neurotypical standpoint of things, but is also just very mission focused. And I don't think he saw the mission. I think what he saw was the opportunity for profit and um,
Yeah.
an opportunity for status. And I don't want to speak, too poorly of him because he's still a good guy. We still keep in contact. And, he recently landed an opportunity at I think it was not a startup firm, but an investment firm. So I mean, he's doing well for himself. But um, yeah, that's one of those ruthless things you just gotta kind of pay attention to early stages. Is just like, is this person going to be perfect for the culture, and do they have the technical chops, necessary for this sort of thing? But that's been my experience at least.
Yeah, that makes total sense. I think it's a good example in general of um some of these gaps actually show up almost immediately. Like you can immediately tell, and then it's just like this waiting game where you're like, when should I bring this up, or when should I give them the benefit of the doubt and stuff like that. And as somebody who identifies, I think personality wise with I always try to give benefit of the doubt, and this is something I've learned. I we have a small team right now, so I haven't had as many of experiences with this, but like for example, with contractors and stuff, um, you tell them to do something, and then you're hesitant to be the bad guy or whatever, right? Um, but yeah, one mismatch can slow everything down, so it is really important to bring it up.
Yeah, I've found that the team too, it really affects just the overall culture. Like if
Mhm.
you're allowing one person who, say, for example, isn't doing like a lot of work, or one person that is allowed to get away with like lying or something like that, then other team members see that and they're like, oh, is this the culture? Like, am I allowed to do this? Am I allowed to do that? Like, no, let's get this out the door, as quickly as possible so that we can focus on building the culture that we want to have. I don't know, at least that's my mindset on that. And that again has changed a lot from the beginning, as
Mm,
we were kind of mentioning, I was doing, in the past I would hold on to someone for 6 months, a year, something like that.
mm,
And I would say the kindest thing I think a past employer did for me is
mm.
he was kind of a dick in the process. So let's be fair. But yeah, within 2 months, he was just like, you know what, this is not a fit. We've tried things out. Good luck.
Mm,
And at first, it really stung because it was just like, damn, I'm getting let go of like this pretty prestigious, company. But then in hindsight, I thought about it and I was like, well, if it's not a fit, if it's not what they're looking for, it's not what I'm doing my damnedest, I'm putting in extra hours and it's still not what they're looking for, then so
yeah.
be it. Like I'm glad we ripped that Band-Aid off early on.
Yeah, that resonates a lot. And I think something they told us in YC too was like a lot of founders will wait too long. Um, the idea, the essentially like the cost of waiting is higher than the cost of acting. So, um, it is hard because you have to make, like you're talking about your former employee, those calls pretty fast, but you have to do it without getting attached or like yeah, losing empathy. So yeah, it's
Yeah, it's always
that's
a
the
tightrope.
game. Yeah, that's what we have to play. Yeah. I think a lot of founders need to hear that. So yeah, I think that that's definitely. Is there anything you're experimenting with right now that is working when it comes to hiring and like finding people?
Yeah, great question. I would say high agency, just like right out of the
Mm,
gate. If they're like, oh, I see what you're doing here, and I'm going to yes and this into existence. I'm my
yeah.
first week, I'm putting something together, and here's how it can be improved.
Mm,
Like Himanshu, for example, that's what he recently did. If I pull up the homepage, actually, he just recently let me see, put in like an example of, and let me go ahead and share screen for the audio listeners. You're out of luck. Sorry about that.
mm,
But yeah, sharing screen here, and you can see like he added this general kind of like bento box section that like highlights what it's like to interact with the chat without people actually having to watch the demo video or actually interact with the demo itself. And he's just trying to showcase that it's like super easy to just add this chatbot and ticketing system to a website. You basically just need your API key and the URL, and you just copy and paste that snippet of code into your website, and you're off to the races. But
nice.
yeah, let me go ahead and stop sharing screen real quick. But yeah,
Mm,
high agency, I think, has been a game changer for me. Is just and I think that also comes back to the missionaries versus mercenaries sort of situation.
mm,
After about a week, you can tell if someone's just there to make the money or if someone's there to um, improve the mission and really improve. And I say mission because, former military. So I'm probably going to use that vernacular more often than not. But same thing, could be said about like a vision, right? It's mission or a vision or just like a general focus on the common shared goal.
yeah.
So yeah, I find that helpful. Obviously there's still going to be flaws in my perception. There's still going to be ways that people can kind of game the system and that sort of stuff. But
Yeah.
um, I'm not neurotypical, and I don't typically approach things from like that
Mm,
standpoint of like, oh, we need to have social cohesion at all costs. You know what I mean? It's just like,
yeah.
is this person good? Is the question
Yeah.
that I'm
Yeah.
ultimately asking, I guess.
Do you ever this is like the last thing I'll ask along this thread, but do you ever do like work trials or have you ever thought about stuff like that to try to assess for things like that?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a great way to approach stuff is just to bring folks in as a contractor to start.
Yeah.
And then, if they're solid, like why not offer them equity down the line or like give them a bump in salary or what have you. So
Mm. Yeah, I was just curious about that. Um, yeah, no, I think that I think what that really resonates and what you said about high agency makes a lot of sense. Um, the yes and yes energy that you're talking about. Um, yeah, I think that's a common thread about what we're talking about today. It's like momentum over perfection. You said missionaries, right? Over mercenaries. Uh,
yeah, and I'm just pulling that from Bezos, I believe.
oh, okay. Nice, nice. Um, but yeah, building things that building quickly, getting feedback, iterating. And yeah, this was a lot of fun, Ben. I really appreciate you having me on and asking me all these thoughtful questions. Yeah.
Yeah, of course. If you ever want to circle back and do a second episode, I would love to have you as a guest. I'd love to do a check-in and progress report on like where you guys are at and where you're headed.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, super excited and very bullish on this. I think you guys have a very sticky and awesome product, and I'm super excited. I hope you guys do really well.
Awesome, man. I really appreciate that. I appreciate the conversation and happy to hear any feedback. Yeah, this was great.
Right on. All right, cool. Well, we'll go ahead and end it there. But yeah, pleasure chatting with you, and hope the rest of your holidays and weekend are relaxing. And this doesn't turn in the back of your mind too much when it comes to, the technical problems that you're working on. But as a founder, I know how that goes. So
Yeah. Yeah. Happy holidays to you as well, Ben. Yeah.
all right, right on, dude.
All
Well, I
right.
hope you have a great one,
Yeah.
and we'll circle back soon.
Cool. Sounds good.